This is the fourth video of my AutoHome project video series. If you haven't watched the previous 3 videos, be sure to watch those from this playlist before watching this one, as the videos are closely related to each other. Welcome back, and in this chapter, we'll learn all about how to set up AdaFruitIO. Then part 2 will be all about the Raspberry Pi. We will set it all up so it can be ready to run AutoHome. And then finally, we'll test our setup to make sure everything runs smoothly. This is AutoHome, the software guide. AutoHome's ability to be remotely controlled over the internet was made possible by a platform called AdaFruitIO. So in this video, we'll be working a lot with AdaFruitIO. Also, in the next video, the one that talks about the Raspberry Pi's side of things, AutoHome is primarily Python based. And so we will be making slight modifications to the Python code so it can suit our needs. So first things first, AdaFruitIO. This platform is going to be the main service that we'll be using so that we can remotely control our Raspberry Pi and tell it to turn on and off our home appliances. So head over to the first link in the description, this one, and create an account there. After creating the account, go to io.adafruit.com. Now create a new dashboard. From Actions, create a new dashboard button. I called mine AutoHome, but you can call it whatever you want, as this isn't really related to any code we're using on our Raspberry Pi. Now click on your newly created dashboard, and here comes the quick and easy part. You can follow this next section of this video by following the wiki found on GitHub if you want this video as a text version. Create a new block using the plus button, select Toggle. In the Choose Feed screen, create a new feed and call it Master. You'll use this switch to control the ability to change all other switches in your project. Make sure that Master here is selected and hit Next Step. You can name your block anything you want, I'll call it Master. And by default, whenever you send it a new text called On, it'll switch on, and whenever you send it off, it'll switch off. So hit Create Block. Next, create another block, also a toggle block, and in the Choose Feed screen, create a new feed and call it something you'll use in your code to indicate a switch to control the equipment. I chose AC because I want to control my air conditioner. So hit Create, make sure that new feed is checked, hit Next Step, name your block anything you want, I'll call it AC, and leave the other values as they are. Now hit Create Block and create a third block. Now hit the indicator block down at the bottom left. Create a new feed called AC-status or whatever equipment you want to call it here. Hit Create. Make sure it is checked. Hit Next Step. Name your block anything you want. I'll call it AC status. And under Conditions, set the parameter to equals. And set the text to turn it on to on. And then create block. Create a fourth block. It's also an indicator. We'll create a new feed called service-status. This new indicator will let us monitor the status of our Raspberry Pi's AutoHome service, so make sure that's checked and hit Next Step. Name it anything you want, I'll call it service status. Also in Conditions, make sure it is equal and on. Now hit Create Block. Now do keep in mind that the feeds I chose are ones that the Raspberry Pi will be monitoring. So if you want to choose other feed names for your project, you're going to have to modify the Python code found on the Raspberry Pi by just a tiny bit. Don't worry about that in this video, we'll be talking about that in the next one. Now that you're done setting up the dashboard, let's talk about what we just made. The master switch controls everything else. If it's set to off, whatever you do with any other switches you might create, it won't affect the Raspberry Pi in any way. So once the master switch is set to on, the AC switch can now properly do its job. When you switch the AC switch to on, the Pi should turn your air conditioner on and report back that your AC is now on. This is why you have an AC status indicator light. and that light turns green once the AC is on and red once it's back off. The service status indicator light tells us whether or not the Raspberry Pi is online and properly connected to AdaFruitIO. If there's a problem with the connection, or the AutoHome service isn't up and running on the Pi, or the Pi is completely dead, that light turns red. You can also edit the dashboard's layout by hitting the gear icon and moving things around. I like to have the status indicator of every component next to the switch, and the main service indicator next to master. Once you're happy with this layout, hit save. Now we've talked a lot about AdaFruitIO in this video. We've also mentioned the Raspberry Pi more than a couple of times during this video. Don't worry though, in the next one, we'll be setting up the Raspberry Pi to properly communicate with your AdaFruitIO's new account. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon so you're always up to date with the latest videos I release here. Thanks for watching!